You see, we often talk about women wanting emotional presence in a partner, but presence alone is not enough. What women actually crave on a deeper, often unspoken level is something far more complex: emotional leadership. And this is not about dominance, control, or being emotionally stoic. It's about a man's capacity to stay grounded in himself when everything around him feels chaotic, especially when she is in emotional distress or vulnerable. That's when she's watching you the most, not to test you, but to feel you, to know if you're a container strong enough to hold space without collapsing into it. We live in a culture that's obsessed with either hypermasculinity or total emotional surrender, as if those are the only two options. But real strength is found in neither extreme. Emotional leadership is the integration of stability and empathy. It's when a man can remain deeply connected to his own inner compass while simultaneously attuning to her emotional state without absorbing it. He doesn't get pulled into the storm, nor does he abandon her in it. He anchors her, not by fixing, not by analyzing, but simply by being fully there without fear. This is where so many men get it wrong. They think they have to fix everything to be worthy of love. But the truth is, women don't want you to fix them. They want to be felt. And being felt means you need to cultivate a stillness within yourself. You have to learn how to hold paradox, to feel deeply but not drown in her feelings, to care but not lose yourself in caretaking, to love but not become dependent on her validation. Emotional leadership is not a skill you learn overnight. It's forged through self-awareness and inner work. It begins by recognizing your own triggers and learning how to regulate them. When you become the kind of man who can sit in the fire of discomfort without trying to escape, numb, or react, you become magnetic. Women sense that. They feel your centeredness, and it signals to them, this man is safe. This man is solid. I can relax here. And let's be honest, today, women are carrying so much. Emotional burdens, societal expectations, performance anxiety in both career and relationship roles. Many of them have had to lead emotionally for too long. What they crave, in the quiet moments they rarely speak of, is to lean back, not because they are weak, not because they need saving, but because they want to surrender in the presence of someone they trust to lead emotionally. That's the secret. She wants a man who doesn't just show up when it's easy. She wants a man who can show up when she's spinning out, when she's unsure, when she's pushing you away, to see if you'll still stay centered, and if you can meet that moment without ego, without defensiveness, without the need to be right. If you can just hold her gaze and say, I'm not going anywhere, you will awaken something ancient and sacred in her. This kind of leadership can't be faked. It has to be lived. And once you embody it, you'll stop chasing validation and start attracting devotion. Because the man who leads with his heart, often without words to articulate it, is presence. And I don't mean being physically in the room or just nodding along while you think of your next response. I mean the kind of presence that feels like emotional oxygen. The kind that says, I'm fully here with you, not trying to change you, not trying to distract you, just here. You see, the feminine isn't moved by performance, it's moved by connection. A woman can tell instinctively when you're just checking the boxes. She might even appreciate it, but appreciation is not the same as desire. The moment she feels like she's being managed instead of met, she begins to pull back. Not out of spite, but because the connection has shifted from relational to transactional. And that subtle shift is what drains polarity. We think the grand gestures are what count. The flowers, the dinners, the text messages. And yes, those things have their place. But they're meaningless if in the moment-to-moment experience of being with you, She can't feel your attention. Attention that isn't scattered or conditional. Attention that isn't seeking reward. Just your raw, grounded, non-performative attention. This isn't about being passive. Presence isn't passive, it's incredibly active. It requires focus, curiosity, self-restraint. It demands that you turn down the volume of your ego long enough to listen, not just with your ears, but with your body. Can you feel what she's not saying? Can you sit in silence with her and resist the urge to feel it? That's the level of presence that cultivates safety. And safety is the foundation of desire. Because here's the paradox. The more emotionally safe a woman feels, the more free she becomes in her expression, sexually, emotionally, spiritually. Not because you've unlocked her like a puzzle, but because she's relaxed into herself in your presence. Your stillness becomes the mirror in which she can explore the full range of who she is without fear of being judged or misunderstood. Most men underestimate how much energy they leak trying to perform for love rather than being love. Women feel that. They can feel when your attention is divided, when you're distracted, when you're listening just enough to respond but not enough to truly witness. And they start to guard themselves little by little, until one day you realize you're no longer sharing the same emotional space. You're roommates, not lovers. When you start to think it, I can do it only daytime, you realize you're no longer sharing the same emotional space. You're roommates, not love providers, not partners. Presence doesn't require money, status, or even experience. It requires courage. The courage to slow down. The courage to feel instead of fix. The courage to be vulnerable without needing to be the center of the story. And that's what makes it rare. That's what makes it powerful. Because in a world that's constantly rushing, divided and performative, your presence becomes a portal back to truth. So when you sit across from her, whether she's laughing, crying, silent, or wild, don't ask yourself, what should I do? Ask yourself, can I just be here with her? And if the answer is yes, truly yes, you'll unlock something in her that no gift, no performance, no amount of effort ever could. Because in the end, what she remembers is not what you gave her, but how deeply you let her be seen. Now let's move into something that's often misunderstood, but deeply attractive when embodied properly. Boundaries. Not the walls we build to keep others out, but the lines we draw to stay rooted in who we are. Because the truth is, kindness without strength doesn't inspire trust, it breeds uncertainty. And women, whether they voice it or not, are deeply attuned to whether you're a man who knows how to say no. We've been conditioned to believe that being liked is more important than being respected, that being agreeable is a fast track to connection. So many men fall into the trap of people-pleasing, confusing it with love. They accommodate, they suppress their needs, they avoid conflict, thinking it will create harmony. But what it actually creates is quiet resentment, a subtle erosion of self, and ultimately a loss of polarity in the relationship. Because if you're always bending, she can't feel where you stand. This doesn't mean being cold or inflexible. It means being in integrity. It means knowing your values, your limits, and your truth, and being willing to express them, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable, because that's when you stop being a projection and start becoming a presence. Women don't crave perfection, they crave certainty. And certainty isn't loud or arrogant, it's simply embodied clarity. And clarity is magnetic. When you say, this doesn't work for me, or I need some time to process this, or I won't tolerate being spoken to like that, you're not rejecting her. You're respecting yourself. And when you respect yourself, you invite her into a space where mutual respect can exist. Not control, not dominance, but honest polarity, where each person maintains their full shape. Without boundaries, you become an emotional sponge, absorbing her mood, walking on eggshells, hoping to avoid tension. But tension isn't the enemy. In fact, healthy relationships require tension. They require the friction of two differentiated selves meeting in real time. It's in that friction that growth happens, intimacy deepens, desire awakens. And if you're always smoothing things over, you're robbing the relationship of its fire. Women test boundaries not because they want to break you, but because they want to feel you. Can you hold your center when challenged? Can you stay true to yourself when seduced by comfort or validation? That's the real question. She wants to know that your love is not a performance, but a stance. Not something you offer to get something back, but something that flows naturally from who you are. The irony is, the more you try to please her at the cost of yourself, the less safe she feels. Because on some level she senses that your yes doesn't mean yes, it just means please don't leave. And nothing creates more emotional distance than a man who abandons himself in order to be chosen. So be kind, yes. Be compassionate, open, generous. But let those qualities come from strength, not fear. Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. Let her feel your spine. Because ultimately, it's not your availability that makes you attractive. It's your depth. And depth can only exist when boundaries are clear. Because when you stop asking, what does she want me to be? And start asking, who am I willing to be no matter what? That's when she begins to truly see you. There's a common misconception that emotional intimacy is built by revealing everything as quickly as possible. I define perversed as anything that drags you away from the core of what you want. It's a common misconception that emotional intimacy is built by revealing everything as quickly as possible. That's when she begins to truly see you. There's a common misconception that emotional intimacy is built by revealing everything as quickly as possible. That the faster you open up, the faster someone will love you. But the truth is, love doesn't work on a timeline, and neither does attraction. In fact, when it comes to what women secretly crave, one of the most overlooked elements is mystery, not in a manipulative sense, but in the psychological and energetic space that allows curiosity to stay alive. You see, we are wired to be drawn to what we cannot fully grasp. This is especially true in relationships. When a man reveals everything about himself in the first few weeks, his entire history, his pain, his purpose, his wounds, his insecurities, it can feel more like emotional dumping than intimacy. Not because vulnerability is unattractive, but because timing and pacing matter. Depth doesn't come from exposure. It comes from reveal. Slow, intentional, earned through trust. Mystery isn't about playing games. It's about maintaining your internal world. Not hiding it, but not handing it over all at once. Women, especially those attuned to their emotional intelligence, are deeply drawn to men who are self-contained, men who are whole with or without them. When you reveal yourself slowly, with discernment, you create the experience of unfolding. It's the difference between lighting a fire and throwing gasoline on it. One burns bright and brief, the other simmers and sustains. It's important to understand that emotional safety doesn't require full access immediately. In fact, full access too soon can feel overwhelming or even suspicious. Think of it like music. What keeps us listening isn't just the melody. It's the pauses, the tension, the anticipation of what's coming next. In relationship, mystery serves the same function. It creates space for desire to grow. And here's the deeper truth. When a man is fully known too soon, not only does he lose mystery, he often loses polarity. Because polarity thrives in contrast, the known and the unknown, the safe and the unpredictable. If you collapse all your mystery in order to be liked or validated, you flatten the space in which attraction lives. You become more familiar, yes, but sometimes too familiar too fast. And familiarity without earned intimacy is not comforting, it's dulling. Now, this doesn't mean you should be emotionally unavailable or distant. Quite the opposite. It means your life should remain rich, expansive, and meaningful, with or without her. Your mission, your growth, your solitude, your creativity, these are not things you sacrifice in love. They are the very things that deepen it. And this is the second task. So back to this in a minute. When a woman sees that your world is full and that she's invited into it, not required to complete it, something ignites. She becomes drawn not just to your presence, but to the sense that there is more to discover. This is what awakens the feminine energy in a woman. The sense that she is being pulled into something bigger than herself, not just emotionally, but spiritually. She doesn't want to be the center of your life. She wants to be near a man whose life has a center. And mystery is part of that center. It signals depth, direction, and the promise that your story is still unfolding and that she may get to witness it if she earns her place. So don't be afraid to hold a little back, not out of fear, but out of respect. For yourself, for her, and for the process of building something real. Because in a world that demands instant gratification, the man who reveals himself slowly becomes unforgettable. So it's not so much about the present moment that we care more of the present moment that we care more on the next day. The man who reveals himself slowly becomes unforgettable. So don't be afraid to hold a little back, not out of sentiment, but out of some depth of devotion. So forgive me not to repeat to her what already made so much sense to her.